Good morning, guys. This will be technically our first Bible CEU of this year. Obviously, with everything going on, we're going to try to do our CEUs virtually. And my goal for this year is for us to walk through a book, which I'll get through or get to here in a second. But ultimately, the goal will be we'll post 10 to 15 minute videos every 2 weeks going through some aspects of the chapters we read here in the book and sharing some scripture to encourage us along the way. So if you'd like to participate in the CEU this year, you're going to go ahead and get the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. A shorter book, an easier read, but I think it has some profound meaning that we can apply in terms of spiritual warfare, dealing with demons in today's day and age. So before I kind of describe a little more of what the book is about, I want to let you know that I'll post these videos in the All School Teams page under Files, and then under Files you'll see a file called Bible CEU, and then you can open that up and you'll see that there'll be various videos as I post every other week so that you can watch on your own time. If you miss a week, you can catch up, or if you get this book later in the semester, you can look back at all of our other videos to make sure you get your CEU credit. So with that, let me describe to you a little bit of what the Screwtape Letters is about. So the Screwtape Letters is a book by C.S. Lewis. You probably have heard of this book before, but I recently just went through it, and I thought it'd be worthwhile talking about with you. So the Screwtape Letters is a system of letters that C.S. Lewis has between Wormwood and Screwtape. So Wormwood is a young demon who is learning the ropes of tempting humanity to draw them away from Christ. So he is seeking advice from his older, wiser uncle, Screwtape. So I believe there's 30 or so, 30, I think there's 33 maybe. A little over 30 letters from Screwtape to Wormwood, giving him advice on how to tempt, deceive humanity to draw them away from God. And I think this is a very intriguing way to approach it. Looking at it from the demon's perspective, I think will help give us insight as to how maybe spiritual warfare can play out practically day to day. But as we begin today, I want to read a section from the preface here of the book, and C.S. Lewis points out two things here. He says, one, that there are two equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about the devils. One is to disbelieve in their existence. The other is to believe, and then to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. They themselves are equally pleased by both errors and hail a materialist or a magician with the same delight. So two things I want to point out here just from the preface. That C.S. Lewis points out that there are two equal errors we can fall into regarding spiritual warfare, but specifically demons and the devil. He says either one, you can disbelieve them entirely, that they simply do not exist, therefore they do not impact you, they simply aren't doing anything in the world at all. But then he also says you can have an unhealthy, excessive infatuation or interest in them. And he says these are both equally and opposite errors that plagued at least the church and humanity in his day, and I can't agree more. Right? I mean, in today's day and age, I feel like you have Hollywood, right, who's infatuated with horror movies, who's infatuated with the demonic, Ouija boards, you name it, and they seem to present demons as these scary, these scary figures that are here to haunt you, that are here to kill you, and seemingly enough, we are infatuated with it. It always breaks the box office, and I understand why there could be some thrill in those movies, but there does seem to be an infatuation. But then on the flip side too, we really don't think that's real life, and we don't really think the supernatural plays a major role in our day-to-day life. So our culture seems to love the devil and demons in movies, but then when it's off the screen, we simply ignore and pretend he doesn't actually exist. And it's just so intriguing, and I think shows you to a degree how unbiblical our culture is where we're infatuated with the devil, yet we deny that he can do anything. Or, heaven forbid, you have people who are infatuated with demons so much that they truly do believe in their existence and start actually messing with Ouija boards and really do play with that type of fire. So C.S. Lewis says those are two opposite but equal errors. And he goes on to say that the devil and the demons are equally pleased by both of these, whether it be a purely materialist viewpoint that the supernatural doesn't exist, or it be almost a magician viewpoint where you want to master the powers of these demons. And he says the devil loves both. Why? Because the devil, of course, can get a lot of work done if no one believes he exists. And of course, the devil can get a lot of work done if people love him. And so C.S. Lewis is warning us at the beginning of this text that these two errors must be avoided if we're going to have a balanced biblical worldview. We can't be Christians who deny the supernatural, because over and over in Scripture, as we'll see, the devil is a very real adversary. Angels and demons are, in a real sense, active, and we are engaged in spiritual warfare every day. On the flip side, we can't imagine that the devil's around every corner, right? We can't imagine that every negative effect in this world is caused necessarily by a demon. So we can't be infatuated, but we also can't ignore. And so this is the unique balance that C.S. Lewis is seeking to deliver to us in the form of letters from Screwtape to Wormwood. So each week we're gonna walk through 3 chapters of this book. So in 2 weeks from now, we'll have a video kind of discussing chapters 1 through 3, some things that stood out to us. Or at least to me, as I'm kind of talking to myself on this video. But we can also, have a conversation on Teams, or of course, just as you see me in the hallway. So every 2 weeks we'll do 3 chapters. It's an easy read. I don't want to overburden you during these unique times, but I also want to make sure that we can get some solid spiritual inputs during this semester as well. But before I let you go, I want to read a verse here from 1 Peter, because of course I want to connect this with Scripture. And 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 8 through 9 says this: "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings." So as we begin this conversation on spiritual warfare in the Screwtape Letters, I want to remind us that Scripture is clear, that we must be alert and sober-minded as the devil prowls around looking for who he can devour. So this means we can't ignore the supernatural. We can't turn a blind eye to our spiritual adversary. So in that sense, the idea of the Hollywood culture seeing the devil as real is somewhat true, but notice what Scripture also says. It says, resist him, standing firm in the faith. We know that the devil isn't this all-powerful, all-present, God-like figure. Rather, he is simply a creation of God, a fallen angel that seeks to distract and deceive people away from Christ. In fact, during these next few weeks, we'll cover some of how the devil interacts with people. But if you notice, in Scripture, he rarely tries to scare people. Hollywood presents him as this horrifying figure that, wants to kill you and destroy you. But if we notice, Satan in Genesis tempted Adam and Eve with good things, right? Satan in Luke 4, where Jesus tempted Jesus with good things. He didn't scare Adam and Eve or scare Jesus. In fact, it seems like when characters in the Bible interact with angels, they're more terrified than when they interact with Satan. So that's a very interesting biblical reality that Hollywood does not present well. So all this to say that, yes, Satan is prowling around, so we want to be sober-minded, we want to be vigilant, and we do want to resist the devil. That's an active resisting, standing firm in the Christian faith, obviously holding on to Christ as our power to resist. So we'll dive more into depth what that looks like this semester, but I trust that you'll enjoy reading the Screwtape Letters if you haven't yet. It'll provide a unique and informative look into if we could almost get in the mindset of how a demon wants to succeed in distracting the people of God away from Christ. There'll be some very practical things, some things that we'll find even maybe in our own life, or some students are experiencing even now. So hopefully the Screwtape Letters and of course Scripture will equip us this semester to engage in successful spiritual warfare as we point people to Christ. And just like 1 Peter says, resist the devil who is prowling around by standing firm in our faith and clinging to Christ. So this is our first video. Let's read chapters 1 through 3, and 2 weeks from now I'll have a second video posted. God bless.